This is Defenders TV Podcast, episode 92, where we're talking about Iron Fist, Season 1, Episode 3, Rolling Thunder Cannon Punch. Welcome back to Defenders TV Podcast. This is episode 92, where we're talking about Iron Fist Season 1, Episode 3, Rolling Thunder Cannon Punch. And the first rule of talking about Iron Fist Season 1, Episode 3 is that we're going to talk all about it and spoil everything about it. So if you haven't watched the episode, go back and watch it and then you can come and join us. I'm one of your hosts for this podcast, Derek.
Hi, I'm one of your other hosts, John.
And rounding out the group, I'm Chris.
He is rounding out the group, yes. Yes, we're all back again for another episode of our coverage of Iron Fist on Netflix. This one was a pretty darn good episode.
This was really good. This is certainly... It's just notching it up really nicely. I think it's building really quite well at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah, I think we've had a lot of discussions about pacing, and it seems like if we actually take the series as a pacing, they just started slow. They literally... It's almost like a first date. We're now in the third date. We're kind of letting them go to second base. It's happening. It's good. It's good.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us, listeners. I hope you're subscribed to the podcast. We are releasing episode reviews of our coverage of Iron Fist on every Tuesday and Friday every week. So episode 4 will be coming up on the 24th of March, which is Friday. And obviously today is a Tuesday. So if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, pop on over to iTunes by going through defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes. Subscribe to us there. Or if you want to find us on any other podcast catcher like Podcast Addict, Podbean, Beyond Pod, just search for us using Defenders TV Podcast or Iron Fist. We actually come up under that as well. So please subscribe so you can catch each of our episodes as we go. We won't be spoiling anything ahead on episode 4, 5 or 6. We'll just be talking about episode 3, but just make sure you've watched it before we continue. The way we cover our episodes is we discuss our top 5 points. These ones are combined on this season, where we talk about the best 5 moments or the top 5 moments that we pulled out of the episode. So hopefully you'll be able to join along with us and send us in your feedback as you go.
Absolutely. And you can leave feedback at defenderstvpodcast.com. And you can leave voicemail feedback over at our website, defenderstvpodcast.com. 90 seconds long. And of course, we also now have our spoilery comments section for each episode up on our Facebook group. Just head over to Facebook and search Defenders TV Podcast. You can reply to those comments and leave spoiler-filled posts about your thoughts on the episode and discuss it with other people in the group. So please come along and join us there. And whilst you're at it, you can also join our Facebook page if you want. And we are, of course, on Twitter as well. Just go to @DefendersCast and you'll see some random tweets about Iron Fist during the course of us watching them.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been kind of fun getting some of the voicemails in about the episodes. We're hoping to get loads more. So we do have a competition open, which we'll talk about later on the podcast for anybody who's leaving us some feedback. So it's been really, really good. Gentlemen, I think it's time to get into our discussion about this episode.
I think so.
I think it's about time at this point.
So this episode of Iron Fist was written by the awesomely named Quentin Peoples. He has worked on a bunch of television shows before, including Flash Forward. It's his first time working in the Marvel Universe, though. And the episode was directed by Tom Shankland, who directed an episode of Luke Cage, one of our favourite named episode. Guess which one? It's Dwick, of course.
Dwick. Excellent.
Yes. So he's the second time in the Marvel Cinematic Universe doing his job here as a director. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis of the episode?
Sure. Now on the run after escaping Birch Psychiatric Hospital, Danny Rand seeks refuge in the Chikara Dojo. Its owner, Colleen Wing, is unhappy about her new lodger, but as she's in serious debt, she accepts Danny on the promise of financial relief until he begins to cause controversy with her students. With Danny gone from the dojo and the need for additional money, Wing, calling herself the Daughter of the Dragon, turns to illegal street fighting to bring in much-needed cash. In a penthouse apartment across the city, Harold Meacham has other problems when he is visited by a very intimidating guest who wants to know why he left his penthouse and reiterates that he must hold up his part of the deal between them. Meanwhile, Danny meets up with one of his father's former legal secretaries to discuss his case against the Meachams. Formerly known by Danny as J-Money, the secretary is now a partner in her own law firm and is willing to work pro bono in return for being held on retainer with Rand Enterprises, but more importantly, just to give the Meachams what she feels they deserve. As Jaren Hogarth is on the case, it won't be long until Danny wins back his honour. Whilst at Rand Enterprises to thrash out the legal case, an overheard phone conversation between Ward and an unknown caller leads Danny to tail Ward to a plush downtown apartment block, where all is not what it seems.
Our first big crossover episode.
Absolutely, really is.
What a great character to choose.
Exactly.
I think we'll go into our first
Jerry.
Jerry. Yes. Yes, no, it's great to see Carrie-Anne Moss back on the episode. So our first point is obviously about J-Money and her appearance in the episode.
And not Jerry Springer.
Not Jerry Springer. But
J-Money.
It is fantastic to see Jerry Hogarth in the show. The character is kind of like the Foggy to Matt Murdock's Daredevil in the comic books. So having Hogarth being so involved in Danny's life the minute he gets back to New York is great. And I love that there's that interaction between the two of them where he's treating her like he hasn't seen her obviously since he was 10 years old. So he's treating her like that one that always took care of him in the office, the legal secretary who had a terrible life and was treated really badly in the office, and now she's a grown up with her own business. I love the way she treats Danny. I love the interaction between the two of them.
Definitely. I think like J-Money here is really, really good. I mean, I love the fact as well that she does kind of bring Danny straight down to earth. You know, she's kind of questions his homeless hipster look in a really kind of condescending way, and which is, of course, any little swipe at a hipster sometimes gives you a little bit of joy in your molten dragon heart, you know? No offense, obviously, love hipsters, great. But Danny keeps saying to Joy and to Ward, this isn't about the money, because they are, you know, thinking he's coming in here to take the company from under them. And I love how Hogarth here really kind of, you know, makes the point, money is the only language that they speak, and you need to also speak this language. You know, that disconnect from being in, you know, the mystical city of Kunlun and now in, you know, the financial capital in the world of New York, and just the language of money. I really like that, and I must say I really do like her disdain for the Meachams. Yeah, she really does not like Ward. She might be able to tolerate Joy, but like that exchange across the boardroom table, I just thought it was really, really good. And I mean, I can't wait to see their face when they realize that she's on retainer, because she's bound to win. She's awesome. I think as well, one final thing, I do like the fact that by calling her J-Money, it does soften the 1,000 cuts thing and everything from Jessica Jones. I mean, you know, she was nasty in Jessica Jones. She was a real heartless kind of lawyer, in that towards her girlfriend and her staff. You know, she was quite ice cold, and there was a bit of softening up of her towards the end of Jessica Jones, and a bit in Daredevil season 2 as well, where she pops in. But here, I think just Danny's response to her, just because Danny remembers her as a starting out lawyer, you know, a desk job, secretary kind of thing.
A full desk job.
Yeah, then, you know, it kind of like, okay, she wasn't always that ice queen. And I think the J-Money thing really helps there.
Yeah, no, I'm going to agree with you here. Actually, I think they've gone, one of the concerns I think we all had was the ice cold kind of hardness of the character in Jessica Jones, and how that would translate to Iron Fist and being Jerry Hogarth, Danny Rand's confidant, his second in command almost of Rand Enterprises. And we were never sure how that relationship was going to work. So it looks like they actually did the right thing, and well done to the team for this, in that they introduced a character very early on, and now they introduced her as a flawed character, who was kind of too into themselves, too ice cold, and through Jessica Jones, the happening in Jessica Jones and the happening in the short Daredevil season 2, we see now that she seems to be more human.
Yeah.
She's basically understanding her flaws, because I think basically if this was taking place prior to Jessica Jones, then it would be a completely different outcome.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they did. They did it in such a way that it was kind of, okay, let's destroy this character to a degree and then build her back up again.
Yeah.
But saying that, she suddenly wanted the way that she wants her firm on retainer.
Yes, absolutely.
Which is like, okay, but there's still a sliver of capitalism in her.
Oh, there's more than a sliver. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I know what you mean, and I don't.
She's still a businesswoman. You know,
Yes.
she's still got all of that going for her. And I mean, like, I do like the fact that she kind of was like saying to Danny as well, you know, keep going. What do you remember? Like, she didn't just buy the first kind of old tale that Danny said, which did chime with her.
Yeah.
You know, she kept pushing him. I mean, you can almost see it working. This is how calculating she is, though, still, is that as soon as she said, okay, you're Danny Rand, okay, I'll do this for free. So, but you put my firm on retainer with Rand Enterprises. I think as well, it's nice little touch for her character that she was managing his parents' estate and that the flowers are fresh on the gravestone. Again, it just kind of, it does show her human qualities, that, you know, she recognizes that they gave her her first opportunity at Rand Enterprises as a start out legal secretary, and you know, she's built her career from there, and so she's got that loyalty there to the Rands, and through managing the estate, and that, you know, she's thinking of those little touches.
Absolutely.
So I quite like that little touch, I have to say.
And as you say, I like the fact that she's not doing this out of the goodness of her heart. She is doing it because she hates the Meachams, particularly Ward. And now she's got an opportunity to kind of get back at them, which I really like. But it does bring up a great future possibility for the character, because Danny does still see her as that person that he knew before he left. He knows she's a hardened lawyer, but that's all he knows about her, is that she's now a great lawyer, and what he knew about her in the past as being the low-level legal secretary. So will there be a moment when he finds out about what she's been doing and the kind of lawyer that she is? You know, that creates a nice dynamic between those two characters for the future.
Yeah, but I think with that, do we head onto our bloody hands? And another crossover that, whilst we don't see her, has peppered this episode with Madame Gao and Harold Meacham meeting up.
So, before we get into this, I have a theory. I don't know if I'm right. I don't know whether it's story-driven or the fact the actress may have not been around.
Okay.
I don't think that was the same actress for Madame Gao.
Really?
In the shadows. It just looks slightly off.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it's just my imagination now, but she also has done other things this year.
Right.
Or last year when this was filming. So I'm potentially, it's like, oh God, we've got a scheduling conflict. You know what? We'll put her in the dark and just do it all black and white.
We'll just show her feet and her tapping the floor, and then when she comes back later, it'll be fine.
But I love that. I really liked that kind of introduction. It almost kind of mystical, like she's not in the room, he can't see her, like his sparring partner just disappears somewhere, and you're like going, okay, where did he go? Or, you know, he probably just legged it, he was so freaked out by it. And I just liked, she's coming to say, you know, where did you go? What have you been doing? And, you know, this intrigue of the deal, you know, we've got them purchasing or trying to purchase the pier, here. We have, you know, this relationship between Madame Gao and Harold Meacham. So this is like, you know, what's the pier for? What's the relationship? What's the deal that we got? But, speaking of theories, we do get confirmation that Ward did disobey Harold here. rather than taking Danny Rand to safety, that he just got him beaten up by the inmates. I kind of like that. And we do see hyperbaric Harold as well in his oxygen tank, snoozing away softly, which is interesting, like quite vulnerable. I thought, like, I like that kind of vulnerability of him, and him drinking a concoction of different liquids as well. So presumably, if we're thinking, has he been resurrected as well, or was he just saved from his illness? I'm just wondering, is this the hyperbaric chamber plus the magical juice? Is that keeping him alive? Or has he been in one of those urns like we saw with Elektra? Did they chuck him in one of those? So it looked like it was a funeral tradition, but actually,
I think he's just eating kale. Here, it's a superfood. It's a superfood. He's like inhaling smoked kale. He's drinking kale. It's just, it's keeping him alive.
I love it.
That's it. Kale juice. Oh God, that
Kale
must be
juice.
disgusting.
Like everyone else has a shot. Would you like a shot of kale juice? No, I'm all right. He's like, yeah, just give me a glass of it.
Well, if that's what keeps you alive, you would do it. I do like how scared he is of Madame Gao, though. He does go down on his knees on glass in front of her. That's a moment of deep respect and deep fear, really, from him.
I really like that. Just the voice, the commanding voice of Gao saying, "Neil, we have an agreement that you must honor." She is frail looking but deadly.
Absolutely.
And commanding.
Yeah.
I love this character. And like, we haven't really seen her. It's just the voice and that kind of tapping of the cane.
Yeah.
Really very cool.
And as always, when we're watching these episodes, we do put on the subtitles so that we can catch some of the things that are being said that we may not understand. It was revealed immediately that this is Madame Gao as well, because the subtitles were preceded by Madame Gao says. So this was not hidden to us at all. We're not guessing this is Madame Gao. It did come up on the subtitles on the screen. So hopefully we're not spoiling anything for anybody who isn't aware. Madame Gao was in Daredevil season 1, and we knew she was coming back at some point. But great to see that this character is going to be really incorporated into Iron Fist.
Definitely.
For me, I love this scene. It was, or just in general, the omnipresent heavy presence, if that makes sense, of the hand over Harold. Like, he is living in constant fear.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's reverence or fear or a mixture of both. Like, he was straight away subservient, so he understands her power, or the hand's power. Well, we think he does, and I'm wondering, it's not like he's afraid. Like, if this was, say, I don't know, a triad, he wouldn't be that. There wouldn't be that level of fear, because there wouldn't be that level of showmanship and kind of turning the lights off. So I think he understands probably there is a level of supernatural something because of that, in terms of like the supernatural, the turning off the lights, the guy disappearing. I'm leaning more towards, rather than faking death, there is that resurrection in terms of what we were talking about.
Yeah, I think this is starting to confirm our theory from episode 1 and 2 that he has returned from the dead.
We might actually get one right.
I know. And I think
that's exciting.
I think I even said, when I said the theory, this can't happen. This can't be the way they're going. But yes, it seems to be coming to life. We'll see as the season goes on. Definitely. Yeah. But yeah, great to see the character back in the show, and it is great to see these connections with the other shows. This is the final Defender, after all, so I like that they're kind of connecting him in really quickly in episode 3. Like, it's very early on in the season to start connecting to all the other shows, but we have obviously Jerry here from Jessica Jones and Daredevil, and we now have Madame Gao from Daredevil. So it's only a matter of time before we see some connection to Luke Cage, right?
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there, and we discussed it briefly in episode 1 and in our 101 top 5 about kind of Iron Fist. They're tying the other 3 shows to this quite tightly, quite early on. So people who have watched Daredevil and are enjoying Daredevil and aware of Daredevil didn't really care for Iron Fist. They're into episode 3, and they're like, oh, okay, now I there's a connection there. I know, I understand it. It's going to make me watch more.
Yeah.
That's not a negative. It probably sounds negative, but it's not what I'm trying to say. It's just more, we talk about it in terms of the MCU or the Netflix Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yeah. They're world building, and that's the thing I always forget in terms of, I give out about, oh, why did you do this? Or like, a lot of my thing is like over exposition or tropes, etc. But they are world building, and they are 4 seasons deep into a world that they're trying to also tie to a cinematic world. So they need the sprinkling of even Easter eggs that keep us comic book fans happy, but more, they need to world build and bring these characters from the other shows, so that, like, I would not be surprised. You made the joke before about when we were in the insane asylum and about having the Mandarin, Ben Kingsley.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's what stuff they'll need to start doing, either if not soon or soonish, to again bump the Netflix universe almost to par with the cinematic. So, like, I know they've always said, well, we probably won't do this. Like, you're not going to have Tony Stark walk in.
Yeah.
But I think on Defenders, you actually may.
You could.
You could, definitely.
And it is the big stunt show, obviously, the Defenders having 4 different TV series crossover in full light with everybody joined together. That's a huge thing to accomplish and a huge thing to do. But I think one of the reasons why they've said they don't want to cross over with the Marvel Cinematic Universe is because they just can't see a kid who's going to see Captain America Winter Soldier at 10 years old. They don't want them to watch something like Jessica Jones because it's a series that's not for them. It's not made for them. So if they do any kind of crossovers with those characters from the normal Marvel Cinematic Universe, that would be like saying to a kid, this is okay for you to watch it. So the shows are extremely violent, obviously, and very different from, much more adult than the movies.
Absolutely. And I think, actually, just coming back to Chris's point about world building, the challenge of this series as well is that it's also, not to get too extra dimensional or mystical on it, but it does have to build a world within a world, because we know New York through the previous series.
Yeah.
But this is also, not only does it have to provide another angle on New York, which is from a less of a street level, obviously from a billionaire's point of view to that extent.
Yeah.
It's also got to introduce the mystical city of Kunlun, or it's ever present at the back there. There's a challenge there because there has to be some acknowledgement of that. And I'm wondering, in the same way that we got that flashback episode of Luke Cage, will we get this entire episode of looking at his time in Kunlun? So far, I think we're getting it through particular snapshots of conversations that he has, whether it's with Colleen Wing or when he, falls asleep, or he has one of those moments where it starts to resonate with him and we get those lines, and he just gets his mind, his thoughts get transported to that tragic moment.
Yeah, they're definitely drip feeding the whole concept of Kunlun at the moment. This seems to be in the background. Yes, there's definitely conversations like we've talked about on our first 2 points, the crossover characters. Next point really is going to be Colleen and Danny, right? The inner energy discussion between those two characters. It's good to talk about those two characters together and where their discussion came from. And it showed off a little bit of the power of the Iron Fist, a little bit of the training that Danny received. There were moves there that he was showing Colleen that she'd never seen before. So showing the different training style that he would have received from the monks of Kunlun.
Yeah, I love that. The inner energy, the inner force moves. He's saying you're all extrovert with your energy and physicality. Bring it in, and just that fluidity of movement that he does. And effectively, he gives Colleen Wing a masterclass right in front of one of her proteges, Daryl, who's kind of mesmerized, I think, at what he is able to do to Colleen. She's throwing everything at him. It really good. And I just thought this was a really nice little touch.
Yeah, and I know we commented on episode 1 that, or you were commenting on episode 1 that you really wanted to see the two of them punch each other, as we all did, go at each other. They're both martial artists, so you want to see them test it out. I'm kind of happy now that they held it back for the 3 episodes, because it's kind of good to see. We've seen Colleen Wing, we've seen her power now, we've seen a bit of Iron Fist at the end of episode 2. So seeing the two of them have this kind of playful battle in the dojo, I think it's a good idea to hold something like that back, and it worked really well.
I really loved the line, the one that smelled like toe fungus, when when him and Colleen are talking about the attackers that came into her dojo.
Yeah, and it's really also very interesting that Danny is treating this like a real dojo, and Colleen is still thinking of this as her business. This is how she makes money. She trains poor kids who've been beaten up at school how to learn kung fu, and he's kind of thinking of it as no. The way I was obviously trained was with a bit of a beating to get me to learn all of these steps, and he gives a bit of a beatdown to one of the disrespectful students. Of
you've got to love a good old classic fart joke. You really do. It's what schools and after school classes or community groups like this, you've got to have a good old classic fart joke. Absolutely. And I thought that was hilarious that he's kind of crouching down and you just get the raspberry from, but then he beats on the beaten kids. And in fact, we also see him getting beaten on by the monks with sticks. Mm-hmm. Like, presumably he did something wrong. Like, he's had a harsh time of it in Kunlun. It's not just a stroll in the park kind of thing. He's had it tough there, and he expects that discipline from others. So
what does he say to Colleen? He says to her about the dojo, is this a kindergarten or are you training warriors? And she's kind of like, neither. That's two very extreme things. I'm doing neither. I'm teaching them how to do martial arts. It's a different thing.
Crouching tiger, farting pants. But that's cool.
Yeah, no, I love the scene. I think more from the fart jokes, which, as John is well aware, I love my gaseous humor, but more so that this gave me a quick glimpse at two masters, and what I'm imagining. I don't know when, almost, let's say like episode 10, 13, or the second half, the second arc, when they potentially are fighting the hand and it's a room full of ninjas, them back to back. And you remember in some like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, some of the old 70s kung fu films where you'd always have the two protagonists, or the protagonist and his best friend, back to back fighting like a circle army of bad guys.
Oh yes.
And they would like rolling over each other's backs and hooking each other, and like one would hold one down and the other would run a ring around, literally in a ring around, kicking people in the face.
Yes. I
can see that from their fluid movements.
Absolutely.
From the fight. And that's where I'm more like, okay, this potentially is a precursor to them. He understands her level. She now, more importantly, understands his.
Absolutely.
And that he's not a homeless guy who has a shave.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah. He's not some preppy billionaire who plays at kung fu because he has nothing else to do with his life. He's a properly trained martial artist. Yeah. And it also answers the question from episode 2 where he did challenge the master of the dojo to a battle. He wins this battle, right? So technically now he is the master of the dojo if you were to respect the rules.
Yeah, definitely.
Is that how it works? Or is it just you must challenge them and that's it? But anyway, they did say that he is.
That's how it always works in video games.
yeah, exactly. It's like in Pokemon. You go defeat the trainer of the gym, and then you become.
And then you become the trainer of the gym.
Yeah, exactly. there can be. It's more Highlander. There can be only one.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a deep cut joke. But yeah, no, I think it was more the precursor that I liked. I think that's kind of more why I was excited about the fight. It was a quick fight, and it showed them. But this kind of brings me on to our next point, which was having Colleen and seeing what she was capable of, and then
absolutely
the cage fight.
Oh yes,
Yeah, and the cheetah punch as well that he's taught her, she uses to get out of a really tricky situation, which was cool. I like that she kind of took on board her loss to him in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's definitely kind of cool to see the master of the dojo learning from another master and taking that into action. It's a very odd scene, obviously, because we did have the discussion with Daryl earlier on where he says, I've got family to support, so I'm doing these cage fights. She says, that's completely disrespectful. You've ruined your reputation with me. And there doesn't seem to be an interim scene between that happening and her going to the cage fights for the first time to explain why she does. Do you know what I mean? It felt like she needed to have, I know this is definitely a trope. I'm glad they didn't do it, but something like her looking at all of her bills and all of the debt that she's in, just to show the drive as to why she went to the cage fight. It almost felt like she completely admonished this kid for doing it and then went, that's a great idea. I could make a ton of money if I do that. And then walked out the door. It felt like a bit of a weird moment for Colleen, but I'm glad they did it. God, the cage fight scene is fantastic, and her announcing herself as the daughter of the dragon as she walks in, giving herself her own superhero name almost, is a great moment.
Yeah, and there was no holds barred with the punching. I mean, she took a few as well from that meathead, and she gave as good as she got and more. Like, it was really, really cool. And I think definitely, I love, like you say, Chris, just that from an interaction with Danny, you see that he's got, a skill set that surpasses hers, but you see that she's also hugely talented and proficient because her skill set is equally good. She's just not been in a mystical city of Kunlun in that sense.
Yeah.
And I love that you get to see her expertise and her qualities come out through this cage fight by effectively taking down a fighter who, on the face of it, is obviously so much bigger.
Yeah.
It is that kind of aspect of float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. It really it is great seeing that.
Yeah, a nice little reference there from Rusty, the fighter that's up against him. When she's dodging the punches from him, he says, "Cut the Floyd Merriweather crap." Floyd Merriweather was a boxer who was up against Muhammad Ali, and that's what he was known for, was kind of dodging the punches. So a nice little reference to a boxing side as well. So very cool.
I'm completely in agreement with you, Derek, on this.
Mm-hmm.
That they missed the exposition of why she was doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
And I know you can connect the dots. Obviously, you know she's struggling, but it's just that little moment of why did she specifically choose to do it after admonishing somebody else for doing it?
But wasn't it done after the fight, where she gets the rolled up pile of notes, and you see that as she collects her takings from it. And so, okay, whilst you're watching her do this, you see that there's been no for exposition on that, except for that conversation with Daryl where she's saying you can't fight for money. We know she's in financial trouble. I mean, I think, it would have been maybe too much of a trope or on the nose, whereas you actually kind of get it after the fact, by the fact that the guy who's organising the fight gives her a roll of notes. And, she puts it in.
As I say, as an audience member, you definitely know why she's doing it. But it's the fact that she admonishes somebody for doing it and says, this will affect your character. You won't be able to get any further in your career. I thought I was going to be able to recommend you to go to college because of this. And then she walks straight to the cage fight and goes cage fighting. Yeah. That little jump between those two things is a do what I say, don't do what I do kind of
absolutely.
Step. But she doesn't mention it at all.
Desperate times, desperate measures.
See, I think it would have been easier if she went there to shut it down, almost. And then if they had just shown her seeing the amount of money that a winner got. Mm-hmm. If they had just shown the promoter give one of the other winners a fistful of dollars.
Yes, yeah.
Then they could have just shown her go, well, I do need that. Or she went to tear the younger kid away, or bring him away. Mm-hmm. And then he was like, you need this too. A short 20 to 30 second scene would have just connected the dots more for a lot. And I think I'm more siding with Derek on this, in that they're giving credits to the audience, saying you can connect the dots. You're
Good.
fine.
That's brilliant.
But in the old adage about business, treat your user like a child, because sometimes you need to fully explain everything to them.
No, we're not. We're not that bad. I'm certainly not saying that. I just do feel that we needed a little bit of an explanation as to why she would have such a change of heart from a stated moment. So I'm hoping this is going to come back in a future episode where she does explain why she made this decision to go against her character, because she does seem to be a very respectable citizen. As a master in this dojo, she seems to be getting a lot of respect from the kids that she's training, and by doing this, she's gone completely against what she's told them to do. So
I think, though, as well, maybe there's another angle to this, that it's not just about the money. Okay, it's a nice side effect, but that she lives for this martial art. She wants to fight. She wants to take it out of the dojo and put it into practice. And that, it's a thing that is almost like a drug to her, that she can do this. I don't mean that it is. I just mean that this is what she is training for, and that would link into joining up with Danny Rand, because it's applying all the teaching, all the skills.
Yeah.
I mean, there is part of me that feels that the students that she's working with, there is an element of, is she going through the motions?
Yeah.
So that this becomes a benefit in two ways, in that she's able to apply her skill, fight, and she gets the money afterwards. I can kind of get the idea of maybe that she goes there, as you say, Chris, to shut it down, and then kind of gets caught up in the atmosphere of it all, or sees the money. But I'm also wondering, is it also about the use and being able to use, and the adrenaline rush of using her skill in an actual fight?
Yeah.
I mean, actually, like the Fight Club.
Yeah.
That kind of element. And that ultimately leads her to wanting to work with Danny Rand.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
In another fight.
I can see that. Yeah, it's a good point. And again, I'm hoping that we're going to come back to this in the future. The scene itself was great. I loved seeing this moment where she shows that she is a completely viable, powerful character by just taking out this guy Rusty, who you just assume is not going to be is going to be the winner because of his size, because of his strength, and because he's obviously a seasoned veteran of these types of fights, and this is her first ever one, you know. But yeah, fantastic that she was able to use what Danny taught her to take him out.
And just to kind of round out this point, the daughter of the dragon, who wants to take that point first, though, or the significance?
You can take
it.
Okay,
I'll take it. Okay. So for listeners who aren't aware, the daughter of the dragon comes from the actual piece where it's the name given to herself and Misty Knight in the comic books. Okay. It's their team name, or if you want to call it that. It was based on a slight from the Steel Serpent. Mm-hmm. He said it in a tongue-in-cheek way after they had beaten him up.
Right.
And
you are the daughters of the dragon.
Yeah, or something along those lines.
Cool.
And it's actually all the way back in 1977.
Right, so very early on in the career
very early on
of Misty and Colleen.
And it was done in a way, and now this is where you kind of see, it's always the who said what first. Some people say it was done as a slight to always make them supporting characters, that they were only the daughters of the dragon, not the dragon themselves, and that they would forever be the supporting characters to their two respective stars, being Iron Fist and Power Man, or the Luke Cage. And that kind of foreshadowed them when the Power Man and Iron Fist series started. They became supporting characters then.
Right. Interesting.
And actually, something we should have maybe potentially said in one of our kind of extra reads, there was a lovely series with Colleen and Misty called Daughters of the Dragon. It was about 2007, 2008. There was a series there. It was really very
cool.
It was based on that kind of authority Mark Miller style.
Right, yeah. Very cool.
That kind of very more realistic kind of style.
And here's hope, and I know you talked about having Colleen and Danny fight back to back. Here's hoping we get Misty and
that would be
Colleen
awesome.
Wing fighting back to back at some point.
That will be Defenders, I bet you. I bet
Hopefully.
you anything, yeah.
Hopefully. I think it's time for our final point.
Yep.
We have talked about the kind of hero moment for Colleen Wing, obviously, in the episode. We get Danny's first proper hero moment in this episode, as he goes to the hospital to go and pick up the final piece of evidence to show that he is Danny Rand. Every single piece of evidence that could possibly exist seems to have been either destroyed or taken away.
Yeah, snaffled up by Ward.
As we find out, by Ward, and his gigantic file of of Danny Rand exists stamped on the front of it. Yes, he goes to the hospital to go and pick up his X-ray from when he fell off his skateboard as a kid, is that it? Or off his bike as a kid. Yeah. So we finally see heroic Danny Rand.
Yeah, I love that he's got this hero moment where he rescues the records lady who's been like knocked out by Ward's hired thug who's sent to go and find and destroy all that. But he saves her from the burning record archive. And there's a nice little bit of scrapping between him and this guy as well. And I love the way he shoots through the shelves of the storage room and through the boxes to knock the guy off his feet. I thought that was pretty cool. And we do see his iron fist again glowing. I just love that look where you get the yellow glow coming onto his face. Really cool.
Really cool, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's great to see his first hero moment. I was actually thinking, are we going to see, Night Nurse here? Are we going to get
100%.
Just because we had kind of got the voice of Gao, we had J Money, all of these connections beginning to come through. I kind of thought that this was where we were going to see Claire Temple.
It's one of those moments that you're expecting Claire Temple to be standing outside the burning records office going, not again. Will people stop destroying our hospital? Yeah, definitely.
That would have been funny. It would have been better if she was the one who was knocked out.
That would have been pretty cool.
She can't be a nurse anymore. She's got a clerical job. And that's her now. That would have been brilliant.
That's right. We never actually saw the face of the records clerk that got knocked out.
No, we didn't.
So it actually could be Claire. It comes back to check on her in episode 5 or episode 6 or something, and we find out that actually was Claire.
We'll have to go back and have a quick look to see if we can make out Claire Temple.
That would be quite cool.
You would have thought there would have been like some kerfuffle straight after he runs out of an exploding room. It's like people in a hospital going,
what's that smell of smoke?
Yeah, and like there was a large explosion. Let's go check it out. Oh, Mr. Security Guard, I'm sorry. I just saved this person. Can you go capture that guy? And no. So, yeah, okay. That's enough of that. I should say I did love this scene part. There was just that one particular bit I was like, really? Where Danny jumps through the boxes?
Oh, I love that.
I just thought it was really weird. I was like, I know how heavy some of those boxes are.
I get that.
Yeah, he's just like, they flew away. And I was like, really?
He's a very powerful kung fu master.
They sounded pretty empty.
Yeah.
I must say it, but I loved the kind of visual of him coming and bursting through the boxes with both feet to knock the guy off. But yeah, when they went flying, it was kind of like, they sound like they're empty when they hit the floor.
Yeah.
Not
It's like,
packed
right, there's
with
no
medical
thud.
records. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I did like that, and of course, like just the scrap over the lighter. Ward really had better be covering his tracks really well here, because I mean, setting fire to medical records in a hospital, like that's a pretty. I mean, maybe that wasn't the intention, but for his hired thug to go down that route, and given what might happen, that could have been really serious.
Oh, it was. I would think it was definitely the intention, rather than just removing that one X-ray, to have a fire there to destroy records, so that's a great cover up for the fact that you were just trying to destroy one. You destroy the entire records room, but the records clerk was in there when the guy was starting to set fire to the place. So was he aiming to kill somebody as well? Was Ward going that far that he would have killed somebody to protect the company?
I think that's the point. I think that's what he was going to do. Look, he wanted to kill Danny in episode 1 when he sent the thugs into Chinatown against Danny with guns.
Absolutely, and
But killing Danny is one thing. Killing an innocent bystander, I think, is a different kind of a different kind of bad here.
Well, Ward has got that loose cannon aspect about him. He disobeyed his dad, and actually, he has now tried to kill Danny in the first 3 episodes. Yeah. The Chinatown festival, we had in the psychiatric hospital, and now in the records office. And that brief flashback to when like Danny, all the young Danny, young Joy, and young Ward are sat around playing Monopoly. Like that is becoming a larger scene now in my own mind, because like he treats Danny really, really badly. He is bullying him and all that, but it's like, I would say Ward has total resentment on Danny,
without a doubt.
Whether it's to do with his closer friendship with Joy, whether it's just because for whatever reason it might be, but like, so are we going to see another attempt on his life in episode 4?
Well, it looks like Ward won't need to do anything. It looks like gravity may be what is going to kill Danny by the end of this episode. He is falling from quite a high-story building.
Spider Danny does whatever. Oh wait,
I know that
he hasn't got the ability to stick to walls. Probably not a good thing to scale a skyscraper on the outside.
It was pretty cool. It's very James Bondy. It's very Spider-Man-y, yes, but yeah, I don't think that was the greatest of ideas. It's a very high up building.
Well, certainly after getting pushed out the window, I'm glad it wasn't a comedy one where the window opened outwards and and he fell. And of course, we'll have to wait to see quite where he lands. Will he land on his feet, on his head, on his back, or on his fists? It'll be interesting to see now what happens to a falling Danny down off from the penthouse. But
how amazing would it have been if someone did actually open a window out and he's just there scaling? Like, remember the old 60s Batman where the commissioner would point his head out, they're just kind of scaling up, and he'd be like, nothing to see here.
That would have been awesome.
Like they could have just brought a bit of levity there.
Or with the rope, and it's obviously on a flat surface. But
the rope is just lying on top of the building, and you're like, wait, I know how this is done.
That would have been a nice little shout out to DC for Marvel Netflix, definitely. Well, those are our top 5 points about the episode. We got a couple of notes, obviously, about
absolutely,
just some smaller things that we picked up through the episode.
Some of them are quite big, though. Really, in fairness, there is the big question of, did Joy give Danny the bowl?
Of course,
yeah. And in fact, just leading into that whole scene in the boardroom, it's such the look that Ward gives her as the bowl is passed from J Money across to Joy and to Ward, and the satisfaction that brings to Jerry, I just really, really thought was excellent. And I mean, it would seem that Ward thinks that she gave Jerry the bowl, and it's obviously got the little thumbprint. It's all been matched and all that. I thought he was going to try and smash it or something.
It is actually, because I was thinking, right, if you have a clay bowl that you've made yourself with your own hands years ago, maybe it's many years ago, but you'd assume there's things like hair and DNA that are left behind when you're making something like that. I thought it would be more than just a fingerprint, because my reaction when they said it was one perfectly matched fingerprint, we have it sorted, that bowl right there in your hands, Ward, is worth $1 billion. You were expecting just to go, ha, smash. And that's all right. What else have you got?
No, but all the work, you see, this is where Jerry is good.
Yeah.
All of it was done beforehand.
Of course.
She no longer needed the bowl and such. Plus, they could have done the Batman thing where they reconstruct it from a model, like the bullet fragments from Dark Knight. Yeah, I just thought this was really good, and like Joy is becoming quite difficult to read for me. It's like she's conflicted about her allegiance to the company and also her sort of nightmarish brother.
Yeah.
But at the same time, she had that loyalty to Danny as kids, and she does think there's, similarities there. She obviously, the M&Ms, she's, I think, fairly clear that it's him, yet she's still acting against him. But then she gives Jerry the bowl, or does she? So it's kind of interesting, and even just the work she does to secure the pier that Rand Enterprises has been after as well. Going into the hospital, like, actually I thought that was a level of smartness from a business perspective, but coldness with regards to the fact that they can buy off the doctors, the hospital, or to get and acquire this kidney or liver for Raj Patel's son or nephew or, you know, whoever it was. Like, that's a pretty sly thing to do. So, like, Joy has become quite an interesting character for me because she's kind of hovering around on whether she wants to be good and open and sort of that friend with Danny, but at the same time closed and hostile and a bit nefarious, really.
Yeah.
Like,
that's next level negotiation techniques. You know, add an extra 10% on it, says Harold, when the deal is still being rejected. She doesn't add just an extra 10% in money terms. She adds the life of your nephew.
Yeah,
we could make sure your nephew survives if you do this.
She goes above and beyond what was maybe required. And, like, I'm kind of there thinking, okay, in essence, it's kind, but it's harsh.
Yeah.
There's other people who maybe aren't billionaires who are, you know, should have first dibs on this.
But as we learned from South Park, money cures all, John. Money cures all.
That is true.
And I think Raj Patel actually thought he was going to a strip club that night. You know, you're going to have the best night of your life, you know, and he loads himself up on champagne in the car. You know, I think he wasn't expecting anything like that. But she was absolutely right. Her description was pretty much correct.
Well, I have to say now, I was thinking, what is going on here? Why are they going to the hospital? But then I just thought, like, just the breadth of what she was doing, I was like, wow, like, okay,
very smart.
You have another deeper, darker level to you than what we're seeing.
Yeah.
So, kind of really interesting.
Absolutely.
Kind of almost like a 0.6, actually. Sorry about that.
That's all right. That sometimes happens. You can't always fit it to a concise 5 points. The big one for me for this episode was Danny gets a haircut and gets some new clothes in this episode. Finally. But of course, what does he forget to do? Bloody shave, man. You're not a hipster. You're in corporate business. You need to shave.
Even the haircut was questionable now. It was like he just shaved the beard, really. He trimmed the beard.
Yeah.
And he kind of got some new threads, thank care of Jerry. Would he not have like kind of just like maybe put it into a bit more of a crew cut? If he's gonna go hipster, go all the way. You gotta go. You can't go one or the other.
Yeah, definitely. And I have to say, congratulations to the costume designer for this episode. The choice of clothes for Danny Rand, the first time he's buying his own suit, effectively. He was 10, remember, when he left, so he would never have had the opportunity to buy the suit. I loved the costume. If you saw it put together, so it's a shirt, a tie, a jumper, a sports coat. Like, he's kind of like, all of these things are adult things. I'll buy them all and throw them on. You know, now I'm in the adult world. I'm in corporate America. You know, really liked it. He didn't go out and go and buy himself, you know, a beautiful Armani suit, which he could have bought the shop full of. He buys himself these random things and sticks them all together. It makes total sense for Danny's character. Really good choices from the costume designer, I think, for this episode.
Definitely. Yeah.
And the runners, don't forget the runners.
Yeah,
It's a suit and runners.
Of course.
Which is the best part.
Yeah, very cool. I've always wanted to rock that. Never really had the balls to do it.
Yeah. I think only David Tennant can rock the pinstripe suit and the
I wouldn't
runners.
go pinstripe now, but
that was his
I know
debut
it was.
outfit,
I know it was, but I wouldn't go pinstripe, but I kind of, I wouldn't mind being able to rock that.
Chris, have you got any more notes?
I do. So I have two. The first one is, does Danny have this new superpower now where he has super hearing? Where he's listening to Ward through a closed, locked office door. So unless Ward is being, like, almost shouting this, you're like, how did he hear that?
You know, there is actually this really funny kind of theory about how unrealistic TV shows and movies really are with people having conversations in the same room as other people and not being able to hear them, you know? So I actually think this is reasonably realistic. If you were beside a wooden door and someone's talking on the phone, you'd absolutely be able to hear the conversation. But we see it so often in TV shows that they close the door behind them and it's like as if they're in a hyperbolic chamber. So you cannot hear outside it, you know? So I don't know whether it's a superpower. He definitely has focus, so it's a possibility. We may see that come up in the future. But yeah, interesting.
And then basically it's the Kung Fu move, name of the episode.
Yes.
Rolling Thunder Cannon Punch. Mm-hmm. And then the actual fact that we got Electric Cheetah Punch in the episode being one of the main. I don't know anymore. I am at a loss. I think they took the name of moves versus actually putting the moves in there. I'm just like, yeah.
It's
like,
very difficult to Google search 70s kung fu movies that may have used the term Rolling Thunder Cannon Punch in them. It's really difficult to catch them because a lot of the 70s movies are obviously from China and from Japan, and obviously the titles are in Mandarin or in a different language completely. So while this may be something that is a factor or a main factor in a very popular 70s movie, we'd never catch it because the subtitles that were put into them were never put up on Google yet. So they should get on that so it'll be easier for us.
Well, and also when you Google Rolling Thunder Cannon Punch, you just get the name of this episode and the announcements, and you're like, well, yeah, I know that. I wanted to know what's before that. Yeah. And then when you try to do image search, you're like, no, that's not what I'm looking for.
Yeah, so very difficult. We'll have to try and see if we can get an interview with Scott Buck and just make him explain to us what each individual episode title means.
Absolutely.
And he's just going to come back saying, well, we took 4 words and put them together, and it sounded Kung Fu move.
But we did say in episode 1, listeners, this one we'd love to leave open to you. You come back to us with in feedback if you know more of these than we do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's close out our episode the way we always do. Chris, do you defend this episode of Iron Fist, Season 1, Episode 3, Rolling Thunder Cannon Punch?
I was not expecting to go first. I do really defend this. I think, as I said at the very beginning, if we imagine the whole series as a pacing, as a one giant episode and it's pacing, it is ramping up. And I think the payoffs are slowly happening in a good way. Like, we're getting exposition in the characters, we're getting a deeper understanding, we're getting the characters, the introduction of characters that we knew were coming, and that they couldn't have just brought Jerry Hogarth in at the beginning. Carrie-Anne Moss would have made no sense in episode 1. No, it wouldn't have made sense to have Jerry in from that part. So I think the pacing now is happening at in a better way. The introductions of the shadowy hand and Madame Gao, the viciousness maybe is wrong word of Colleen, the ferocity almost, the fierceness of the fighting that she has, and of course we have the immortal hospital fist. So I was quite happy with that part. So I think yes, I do defend this episode. It's getting better, and I think that's the thing I'm happy about.
Absolutely.
If we get the mid-series slump, which we always seem to get in these episodes or these series, I don't think, and that may come later on now, which I'm happy about, because it took a while. They're building it up.
Yeah, I'm hoping we got the mid-season slump in episode 1, to be honest, so we don't see it again. John, do you defend this episode of Iron Fist?
I do defend this episode of Iron Fist. I really enjoyed this. I'm giving this 4 toe fungi out of 5 sweaty feet to the front. I have to say, Jerry, fantastic seeing her back on the Marvel Netflix series here. I loved her interaction with Danny Rand. It just made so much sense to me, and it felt really natural. I loved the development of Colleen Wing, this kind of tight situation that she finds herself in. You know, she's part martial arts teacher, part community helper, but also part broke, financially struggling. And I do wonder whether she also is a person made for fighting. Like she wants to, is that part of her motivation to go to the fight club and do this, despite sort of admonishing her student Daryl for doing the same. I think Joy is becoming much more complex, like really conflicted about her loyalties, which I'm enjoying. I like the thing that we discussed here, this idea that Ward really has tried to kill Danny in all the first 3 episodes, which is really good. And ultimately, again, seeing Gao and Harold together, this was really great. I loved the kind of off-camera aspect to how Gao was brought in here, very otherworldly in a sense. And I like the opening with the hyperbaric chamber. You know, is Harold reborn as Allah the Hand, or was he saved from death? You know, what's the distinction here? Really enjoyed that. So yeah, for me, this was a really strong episode, really building on maybe from the slow start of episode 1, but now like 2 and 3, I've really enjoyed. This is building really nicely and I think quite solidly as well. So yeah, definitely defend this episode. So Derek, do you defend this episode of Iron Fist?
It's a 3-fer. Yes, I do defend this episode of Iron Fist. Absolutely. This is a great one by bringing all of the other characters from other shows in, obviously Madame Gao and Jerry, to bringing them into this show, making this feel more part of the Defenders universe now. This is where we're getting it, and we're getting it a lot earlier than I thought. We're also getting some great moments with the characters that we've just met over the course of the last 2 episodes. The hospital scene with Danny, the fight club with Colleen, Joy's moment where she's turning on Ward, all of Ward's controlling nature, trying to take Danny and trying to take him down. Loads of stuff there. And Harold, obviously, another classic character in the Netflix Marvel universe. I'm really enjoying every interaction, every time he's on screen as well. Really enjoying David Wenham in the show. Love this episode. Really enjoyed it. Looking forward to the next episode. But before we get there, take us time to go on to a little bit of feedback. So our first piece of feedback comes from our Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/Defenders TV podcast. We have a little spoiler post up there for episode 1, and now the people are finally getting to see the episodes. They're popping in their thoughts. So Ronaldo starts us off with, what a great opening sequence, gets you in the mood for a kung fu driven show. Love it. First episode over now. I think it was a solid way to introduce the characters. Thought at first the meeting between Danny and the Meachums, Danny could have told a more historic event that they shared. He later went on to do that separately with Joy and then with Ward. I keep telling myself that Danny is essentially a monk, and I like how he doesn't engage in violence unless he needs to. Yeah, it's a really good point, Ronaldo. It's one of the really interesting things about Iron Fist. He is there trying to talk people around before he has to use the fists.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, that's one of the great aspects about this character, that he's both balanced in a piece, but if he needs to, he has to get his chi on, and he's got to bring out the guns.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You know, so absolutely, and that idea anyway of being a warrior monk and that link with Buddhism, you know, it's a really interesting kind of balance there, I think.
Yeah. Ronaldo goes on to say, did we get our first glimpse of Danny using chi? I loved how he placated Joy's dog by praying. In the comics, I think he's able to calm crowds, so it was good to see him using it on Guard Dog. Claire Laffer responds with, I laughed so hard at that dog scene. We knew you would, Claire. We're so happy you've been able to see that episode, and obviously our discussion about that in episode 1. That's really interesting. That is what we talked about. Do love the idea that he's able to calm animals with his presence, with his chi.
Absolutely. We have also put up the and replicated the doggy Danny gif of him about to chase after the axe that's thrown at him along the corridor. But yeah, I mean, definitely seeing a little bit of his power there. And of course, yeah, I think I was probably I wasn't down on the opening sequence. I actually really loved the music. I love the sequence. There is part of me that wishes there was some more green and yellow sparks and in the titles. But now, of course, I think I'm probably going to go crazy and find myself in Birch Psychiatric Hospital as well, because I keep now thinking that there is more yellow sparks coming, like I was kind of hoping there would be. So I think I'm beginning to hallucinate.
Always happens when you watch something a lot.
So I'm in agreement here with John. I actually am noticing more And I think potentially there is, but I know there's not.
I think it's because we're watching it on a bigger screen than we were able to when we were watching the screeners. I think that must be what it is.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's probably it. So for me, I said this that I wasn't a huge fan of the intro on our first episode. 3 episodes or 2 episodes additionally now, I'm actually liking it more and more. It grows on you.
Yeah.
It is like a large amount of ink seeping over you. it embeds itself in you.
I am constantly humming it and going, "What's that tune from?" Oh yeah, Iron Fist.
Yeah, yeah. I just every now and again I do notice myself that. So I think yes. While I didn't dislike it. I wasn't huge on it. I think in the first episode, it is growing on me, and it's a good thing. In terms of Danny and the dog, yeah, I liked it. I liked that scene. It was okay. I want to see more, like Danny versus 20 dogs. Well, Danny runs through a scrapyard, calms all the attack dogs, and then sends them after the bad guys.
Nice.
That's the kind of where I want to see the. I suppose it was good for an opening. It sets up some powers. So let's see where he takes it.
Absolutely, I definitely want to see him. Yeah. Up against 20 members of the Hand.
Yes, yeah, definitely. A little bit of feedback from Michael Ward. He popped in his full in the moment thoughts, so it looks like he was typing them while he was watching the episode really quickly. So, but one of the ones that jumped out for him about episode 1, which we didn't catch, is the Guardians of the Galaxy type call out there, because Danny's carrying an old school iPod, just like in Guardians of the Galaxy that Star-Lord is carrying his Walkman from the 80s. So nice little touch there. Good catch, Michael.
Absolutely.
I did not put that together.
That's pretty cool. Thanks so much for your feedback on the episodes.
Again, you can obviously join the group. Just go to Defenders TV Podcast, search that on Facebook. There's also, you can contact us and leave feedback through email. Just go to feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com or leave a voicemail over on our website at defenderstvpodcast.com. And of course, we love to hear your thoughts and comments on the show, and so keep them sending in. And remember, for voicemail feedback, there is the competition. All those who leave a voicemail feedback will be entered into a draw for a prize.
A Marvel prize.
A Marvel prize.
Which we know, but we will share. We will share soon in a later episode.
A marvelous prize, in fact.
Yes.
A marvelous Marvel prize, you say?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever could
Wow,
it be?
yes, and which is also fabulous and amazing.
So a fabulous marvelous Marvel prize. Okay, this is starting to become a tongue twister. Stop adding adjectives. I think we can't add any more. Okay, and don't forget, you can always subscribe to us. We love and need to spread the word about our little old humble podcast. So please subscribe at defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes. Mm-hmm. Or if you are on Android, don't forget to subscribe to us on any good or evil podcast catcher, such as Podcast Stitcher, Podcast Addict. There is many, but just look for Defenders TV Podcast, click that subscribe button, and don't forget to leave us a few ratings and reviews while you're there, especially over on iTunes, because it helps surface our content for other like-minded individuals who may want to know more about Iron Fist or Daredevil or Jessica Jones or Luke Cage, or all rolling up into one of the Defenders.
Exactly.
Obviously, where all road leads to the Defenders and not Doctor Strange, because Doctor Strange is out now. It is over. We can forget about it.
It's only out in Blu-ray about a week, though, Chris. We haven't forgotten about it at all.
Yeah,
We've watched it
absolutely.
about 4
I've
times.
already watched it twice. And of course, now all roads lead to Thor Ragnarok,
Absolutely.
with Doctor Strange in it as a fantastic special guest star.
No, all roads leads to Spidey.
That is true. That is true.
There
That
are
is
many
true.
roads ahead, gentlemen.
Actually, no, even before that, all roads lead to Guardians of the Galaxy. Then all roads lead to Spidey. Then all roads lead to Defenders. Then all roads leads to Thor Ragnarok.
I hate to correct you, boys, but actually all roads lead to Friday, the 24th of March, with our review of episode 4 of season 1 of Iron Fist, 8 Diagram Dragon Palm. Try looking that one up on Google, Chris.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm going to try that now. I'm afraid of what I'll see.
Thanks so much for joining us. We will talk to you again on Friday.
Yeah, thank you so much for all the feedback. And of course, we will speak with you next time. Bye.
See you guys soon. Bye.